As has become tradition at Digital Foundry on our PC coverage here, we have a best and worst PC port video for the end of this year. It's around Christmas time. Some people are getting lumps of coal. Other people are getting amazing presents. And to talk about this year's failures and triumphs, I'm joined by my friend and colleague, John Linneman. How you doing, John?
Why, hello there, Alex. Yes, it's that time of year again. And not too bad this year, I would say. While we've broken it up into an even list, there was actually, a lot of good PC games released this year that weren't in bad shape, which is more than we can say for some prior years. So the news is not all bad, but there are 3 games here that we've selected that are especially gnarly or were especially gnarly. There's a few more I can think of that I might have included, but these are definitely the worst.
This video is brought to you by Digital Foundry and ExpressVPN. Using a VPN is swiftly becoming essential. It's an extra layer of personal security that enhances your privacy online, protecting your browser history while preventing your ISP from logging your activity on the internet. ExpressVPN wraps your traffic in an encrypted tunnel, rerouting 100% of your network traffic through secure servers. ExpressVPN has servers in 105 different countries that you can choose from, good for accessing region-locked content and services or for remaining virtually local when traveling overseas. Rated as the #1 VPN by sites including The Verge and CNET, ExpressVPN starts from $3.49 or £2.49 in the UK per month for the basic plan with up to 10 simultaneous connections, ad blocker, and malicious site protection. Advanced and Pro plans feature more connections, more advanced protection, a password manager, and further features. Scan the QR code or go to expressvpn.com/foundry and find out how you can get up to 4 extra months thanks to our sponsor, ExpressVPN.
Here, it's a little bit arbitrary what we choose because I'm not playing every PC game out there and there's no ranking here at all, but this is just us talking about it. So I think we should start actually with one of the ones that popped out earlier this year and caused quite a controversy when it did come out. And this is going to be on one of our worst lists. And that would be The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion Remastered.
Ooh, we're starting right with one of the bad ones, huh? Now,
so
if you remember, Alex, this one was like a surprise drop, right? Like there were rumors floating around about this for a while, but it just kind of like landed out of nowhere after sort of like a direct style video going into it. And at first glance, it seemed pretty awesome, I think. And it was headed up primarily by Virtuous, which this is not the only bad port they did this year, but this is probably the worst of the bunch. And it seems like it's a mix of them struggling with certain Unreal Engine 5 attributes, as well as issues with adapting specifically the engine and technology of The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, right?
Yeah, that's basically it. So one thing, a key theme you'll find throughout all of our worst PC ports of this year is that I feel like the base gameplay, when it is interrupted by non-preventable stuttering to some degree, is a hallmark of a problematic port. And you'll find that all throughout this video, essentially. There were other games that stuttered this year, but this one really got to me because one of, I think, the tenets of making a remastering of a game or even a remake of a game would be to try and avoid technical problems that it had the first time it came about. And John and I have done at least 2 look backs at Oblivion running on period correct-ish hardware. And, that showed off quite well on the PC I was using for that video. That Oblivion back in the day, when you'd go across these little grid cells in the world, the game would stutter something fierce on a approachably high-end PC of the time. And you go to the new version of the game right now, you get all of that just like you did back then. But then there's also additional ones, presumably brought about by Unreal Engine 5, as well as the massive increase in fidelity of the assets. And I feel like that really depressed the entire gameplay experience. Because for me, I don't know how you feel about this, John. Of course, there's dungeons in this game. The dungeons run more or less fine. They ran more or less fine in the original game too. But Oblivion and a lot of the Elder Scrolls games are kind of just about like going out into the open world and just finding stuff.
Yeah.
And the basic traversal being so compromised is a real downer.
Yeah, it is, right? And it's an interesting one because like when you come to a remaster like this, you definitely want some of these issues to be erased rather than exaggerated. And what we got was exaggerated, and there wasn't really any way around it that we could find. Like this was just an issue inherent to the game. And
Mm,
what I'd like to envision, and I'm not sure how this played out, but so they also did Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, right? So I suspect that
yes.
Virtuous presented sort of like a package to a publisher saying like, hey, we can adapt your old games and run them like the game logic within Unreal Engine and create like a fresh new coat of paint for it. And that's essentially
Right.
the product they were selling to their partners. Because when you look back at Virtuous's track record, it's not bad actually. They've done plenty
Hmm.
of good things, but it really seems like we're bumping up against this combination of like old technology mixed with Unreal Engine 5 problems coming together to create something that feels suboptimal. And it's very important to stress that while this is the bad PC ports video, this is not good on consoles either. So like the entire release just has issues, which if this was truly like beyond the visual level you would have expected, like if you see this, you're like, wow, this is incredible looking, it'd be a little more forgivable. But it doesn't, like, I think it looks nice, but it doesn't blow my mind in terms of like what they're doing here.
No, at the end of the day, it is still within the constraints of the original game design. Something that we also saw in Metal Gear Solid, that kind of remake remaster, much in the same vein of this for the third game there, and that also suffered from specifically like the CPU limited drops. They are a little bit awkward too. So whatever they're doing with Virtuous with this Unreal Engine 5 hookup isn't working from a technical perspective, performance wise at
And
least.
Alex, I have to point this out. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you are quoted on Wikipedia for this game. You are on the
Oh no,
Wikipedia page. It
what?
says the game was criticized for performance issues. Digital Foundry's Alex Battaglia found Oblivion Remastered to be, quote, one of the worst performing PC games I've ever tested, even when played on a high-end PC. Similar technical issues were raised by the game's player base.
Yeah, I mean, it is true. Like, just get on a horse in this game, man. And it is hilarious how much it stutters. But yeah, I think we've slagged on it enough. Beyond the fact that I want to say that the game's last update, according to SteamDB, at least was in July of this year. Uh, it kind of has that abandoned feeling at the moment.
Right.
And if it really was abandoned for all eternity in this state, that'd be a massive shame, both to the Oblivion name and,
It's a tough
Microsoft.
project though. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
Bethesda themselves is busy with other stuff, right? This is not their,
Yeah.
it's their IP, but this is like an outsourced sort of project. So, I would say both in terms of the visual end result and overall performance that the actual Bethesda game Starfield turned out a lot better than this.
Oh, yes,
This
by far.
this has some technical features that Starfield does not, of course, because of Unreal Engine 5, but it's not worth it.
No, in this case, it definitely wasn't. Okay, so
Okay,
let's move on to our next
next one.
title. This is a best of, and I wanted to highlight here Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Ooh,
So
shadowy.
I'd say this one's really cool on the PC specifically
Yeah.
because, I thought it was actually a pretty great performer on the console there too. Pretty much on every console, it ran pretty darn well. You had a great PS5 Pro version. The base consoles gave you the option for 60 FPS and 30 FPS, but on PC, I really, really liked that they added in extra stuff that you just didn't get on the console version, plus a robust Ubisoft style options menu with a benchmark. Anvil Engine games have always been pretty okay on PC. They've been CPU destroyers historically and
Yes.
GPU destroyers at different times. But this time it felt like a great balance. And I wasn't all too worried about the performance. It ran really well. I really love the addition of specular lighting and their GI solution on PC. So you get really good reflections on a lot of surfaces in the game, which adds a lot to the GI. I really also liked the usage of, they have like all the upscalers, frame generation, super resolution for all the upscalers too, which probably is a headache to implement them all at this period in time, including PSSR
I
there
can
on
imagine,
PS5
yeah.
Pro. They had dynamic resolution scaling. I really think it offered the gamut of things that you really want to see in a good PC version. I think the only thing that was missing from my perspective was like a real-time settings menu that would give you like all the options at the exact same time as while you're seeing it apply in game. But here, given the fact that you had stuff like a benchmark and you could just, just go back into game to see it really rapidly, it wasn't too much of a headache. So I really liked all of that. I think Assassin's Creed Shadows is one of the best looking games this year, and it's really a big reason for that is that PC version allowing you to just really throw that muscle into it.
Agreed. That's how I played it. I picked up the game on PC, was very pleased because so it's a rare thing, it feels sometimes, to play what is a cutting edge PC game and then just having it work, right? But that's kind of what we got here, right? All those extra options that really allowed you to push the visuals up beyond what the consoles are doing at a much higher level of performance. And I was able to do it without any major issues, which to me is already like a telltale sign that, okay, they really put some work into this in terms of ensuring that the PC experience is friction free. But then looking at your coverage and testing across different PCs as well shows that it is possible to achieve a great experience in this game across a range of hardware, and the results just look awesome. This is a really well optimized game. It's probably the thing with Ubisoft and Anvil and all of their Assassin's Creed games is like, I felt like they made that huge jump when they got to AC Unity last gen, but then they kind of pulled back for Syndicate. And then they decided to go really big open world with that Witcher style design of like oranges, as I like to say, origins. And I feel like though the visuals were okay, they took a hit, right? Like the ones that followed, just none of them looked that spectacular to me. And I feel like Shadows was a return to form as far as pushing tech. Both in game, of course, but also, man, the cutscene quality is really absurd. Like the character model detail, the hair system, the lighting, everything about it. It really feels like unbelievably detailed, almost pre-rendered at times.
I'd agree with that,
which is incredible for a game of this scale.
I also really like that they did have responsive patching, unlike Oblivion Remastered. For example, I complained in the review that, I wish there was a frame rate unlock for the cutscenes so that for the future, people running this on Beast PCs can run them unlocked. And they actually added that option after release. They listened to the audience there. They also worked on some more performance stuff, like regarding like shadow rendering and stuff that I also talked about in my review. So of their responsive patches, they also delayed the game. It was originally, this wouldn't have been in this year's video if they didn't delay it.
Right. I forgot about that.
And so they wanted to ensure quality, which I think it showed definitely in the final product. It's an amazing looking game and good on PC too. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So that's a great PC port. Let's swing back to the bad side. So what's next on your list, Alex?
So this may be a little bit cruel sounding because my video wasn't so negative in the end, but I keep reviewing my footage and I realize I should have been a little bit harsher. And it is, unfortunately, The Outer Worlds 2.
Whoa, really? Okay, so that's interesting because I looked at Avowed earlier this year from the same studio, and I thought it was quite okay on PC. But it seems like this one, based on your coverage anyway, is significantly less optimized.
It really is. Avowed runs much better in the open world than The Outer Worlds 2 does. In fact, it's a little bit confusing when you look at Oliver's coverage here because the open world performance on like Xbox is markedly better than more like similar specs on PC, like way better. Like I tried like the equivalent 59, Ryzen 5950X on it. Sorry, I couldn't remember the name of the CPU. That's 1 Zen up above. It should be better, a lot more cores. That thing just tanks in the game when you walk around that open world area. It made some really questionable decisions regarding like how they implemented hardware RT in the game that I'll talk about in the video. Basically adding awful shadows with really weird denoising. They have since patched that to make that a separate option, thankfully, but the performance of using hardware RT in the game is still just dramatically really, really poor. it's one of those games where you really can't turn down the graphics all too much in spite of them being there, because the game just takes on a really poor appearance on a lot of things. Like when you look at shadows, when you look at grass, when you turn down the GI quality, which you want to do because it's really expensive. It's a game where you're using upscaling a lot, and the upscaled visuals, due to how they mesh with Lumen and whatnot, or even VSMs, it just doesn't pan out quite often. Another thing that I didn't think was great was the approach to shader compilation in the title. Now, I think this might have been a bit better in Avowed. Also, there were issues there when you ran through the open world the first time on PC.
It wasn't too bad, though. Like, it was definitely there, but I felt like it was within moderately acceptable parameters.
Yeah. To quote Data. And, the here... I think when Unreal Engine added in asynchronous shader compilation with visibility skipping, I think the engineers behind that saw that as a complementary approach to be added to a PC game for those areas of the game world where their QA maybe possibly could never go there. But when you see it just activating the first time you go down on the first planet, the first time you do it, like for everything in the environment, like everything just looks like potato mode for a bit.
Even like the smoke and everything pouring out of your spaceship seems to be absent.
Yeah.
Where it's just like not there at all. Like the whole thing just looks wrong.
Yeah. And I feel like that is the wrong way to use it. I don't know if that's intentional or not. It's hard to judge intentionality when you're just reviewing a product from the outside. But the thing that it does show in that case is maybe just like a lack of time before release to do a good enough shader gather for a majority of the settings on a majority of the areas of the game. And you kind of ship the game at the end and you're left with that. And the first impression on a mid to low spec PC is rather dreadful. And then you get to the performance and it was really bad. I also think, I don't want to just poke at the game too much, but I feel like the open world visuals in this game in comparison to a lot of other games, or even Avowed, are just not as nearly as good. In spite of the performance you're spending on it. So it was just a real shame, because maybe the game's got something in there if you really like those type of RPG-ish games, but I felt like it really fell flat for me, probably due to that technical performance, which wasn't good.
Yeah, the frame times look like a polygraph test, maybe worse. They're really, really bad. And some things that I saw in your video that I wondered about were things like enabling hardware mode for shadows, and you end up with like a lot of like stifling and noise. It's like there's no denoising happening at all. I don't know if that's been fixed.
I don't know about the denoising itself, but at least a separate option now.
Okay.
That's the thing. I think they were added because they did it in Avowed on certain platforms, and that's probably why it's here, but it maybe wasn't tested completely. Who knows? But either way, I wish the studio to, I hope the patching cycle works out for this game and we don't have like a Dead Space situation where it's just left to rot for eternity.
I suspect not, given their track record. And like, I feel like the Outer Worlds, the original, was just like around for a long time. And you got the Spacer's Choice, which I think Virtuous was involved with, by the way.
Yeah.
So like,
which also wasn't that great.
No, it was not, but it was not actually the Spacer's Choice in the end. But I'm hopeful that they'll continue to support this, because I don't know, this looks like, I like the original. I would like to play this at some point when I actually have time.
Yeah, it should be good. But okay, so let's move on to some greener pastures here. Literally quite greener pastures, because there are pastures in this game and they are so green. And it is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. So this did not make our best graphics of the year. I explained it in a DF Direct kind of why I didn't really put it on that list, but that doesn't mean it was a bad looking game at all. I praised the graphics heavily in my coverage. I gave it loving camera sweeps, slow scrolling video footage of all the awesome Czech countryside here that I could, and even towns. And the reason why this is one of the best PC ports of the year is because it does something a ton of Unreal Engine games cannot manage. It doesn't stutter. It is so stutter free, in spite of the fact that you're going from ultra populated dense cities or crossing boundaries in a world that is, I don't know how many square kilometers this world is, but it feels it's a lot bigger than, for example, like any of the stuff you saw in Avowed, or which is, or any, almost any Unreal Engine 5 game, open world, doesn't rival the size of this or even the density of a lot of the areas you go to. And in spite of that, it doesn't stutter at all. It offers graduated performance options for almost everything you can think of. It offered frame gen. It offered, at a time when it was kind of rare, the transformer model selectable for DLSS. It's just a great performing game. I mean, I do in the video, I go over the fact that, hey, this game's media ultra is a little bit like other games medium in certain areas. And I say that very purposefully, but at the same time, other games even running at their medium setting still stutter like a bleep. So this game, I think, shows the power of the way there would have been a great alternative reality where CryEngine also became kind of one of the bigger middleware engines, because we would have seen maybe a lot of other game studios that had open world ambitions use that instead. And we would have not had this huge, long stutter discussion that we've had for like the last 5 to 6 years now. So I feel like this is a cool alternate reality game, which is interesting because it is slightly alternative history if you in some aspects. So yeah, just a really great release from Warhorse, and I'm very excited to see whatever they do next. I hope they keep up with doing a custom engine tradition like they've done and not go to UE. Because the performance here was stellar.
Yeah, so a lot of people talking about not being in the game of the year. I simply forgot about it. I hadn't played it at that point, but I ended up picking it up on sale as a result, because I was like, all right, I'm curious about this. And the thing about this game I find is like the natural environments do what Crytek always does best. And I think the thing that really stands out to me is, one, like the actual core art and the way everything works together within the engine is really good for these sorts of areas. But the other big thing is that it's so temporally stable, right?
Right.
Like, I'm so used to the fizzle and noise that you get with a lot of other modern games, especially on Unreal when doing these open environments. And like KCD2 is just like really stable looking, where you just feel like everything is just so natural, and it's a really nice evolution of what we saw back in Crysis, I suppose, which is now quite old at this point, but it really was impressive. And this, of course, takes that even further, and it just works really darn well. The performance is good, and in a lot of ways, like I agree, this is. I would love to have seen CryEngine used more for games like this, if possible. And we know that, the first game actually ported well to Switch even. So I assume this one could run on like Switch 2 and the like. So it all seems pretty performant.
It'd be great to see on Switch 2, actually.
This is cool.
Should do that.
This is really cool. I'm really, this one really was off my radar, but I gotta say, like, it's good stuff. And even though it's not as robust, I'm still a fan of what they do with Sfogy. I think it was very forward-looking at the time, and I still think the results it produces are quite good, given how performant it is. So it's like a good enough solution for global illumination in this sort of environment. But that's also why it's really good for this sort of environment. I think it would fall a little flatter in a more modern type of world, perhaps. But it's
rolling hills are kind to things that are inaccurate, to say the least. That's just the way it is. Okay, so KCD2, awesome game. Check it out. One of the best PC ports of the year for sure.
Oh boy, the next one though.
That is not a good PC port this year, or I don't know if it's really super good on any platform, to be honest with you. This is Monster Hunter Wilds.
It's wild, baby.
This game, man. I don't know. We had signs that things weren't right before the game released, when they released system requirements and specs that recommended turning on frame generation to get 60 FPS. And that was already a sign that something wasn't right. And then you load up the game on release day, and through its onboarding process, it wants you to turn on frame generation and highly recommends you turn on frame generation as part of the onboarding process to get in game. And then you get in game and you're like, oh my goodness. I look at this game and its empty plain drab deserts, and I still don't know where all that performance is going.
What about those like rolling hills with like the unloaded textures?
Yeah, this game has tons of issues, and it's really weird because Capcom ended the PS4 gen and started the PS5 gen with just like awesome stuff, right? Crazy good technical performance.
And let's be clear, Alex,
graphics.
we have the Pragmata demo for PC.
Yeah.
It's very good. We've seen Resident Evil Requiem supporting path tracing, all this. Like, there's no indication that their quality of their work is changing. It's just that for whatever reason, Monster Hunter Wilds very specifically shipped with a lot of issues.
Yeah, it may be just a very troubled process in general behind this game's development, but yeah, you just look at those hills. There's if you have an 8 gigabyte GPU, textures are disastrous. I would argue they're still, even as of the latest patch, which I covered most recently for Digital Foundry briefly, the textures are still really bad on an 8 gigabyte GPU. And they're not loading correctly if you put it to high, etc. To make the game run better as a part of that patch, they downgraded, on the high setting at least, the quality of character models. So now I complained that the game had like PS2 textures on the medium setting at launch, and now kind of some aspects of the models have, PS3 aspects to them now with how blocky some things are post-patch on that high setting for model quality. I don't know how much you can save a game post-launch after all the design is done without like a complete rethink for a lot of stuff, but them reclaiming performance in the way they have as of their patches, as of title update 4, I don't think it's still very satisfactory. I think the game still has almost all the issues we saw at launch, just ridiculously questionable performance on the GPU side, where it runs worse than games with like tons of ray tracing effects, all in a desert that has nothing going on in it. On top of those texture loading issues that we talked about there, which are still around. CPU performance is rough. It's not really great in that aspect necessarily. On top of a game that just doesn't look that good as it really ought to, given the performance. And they also ended up choosing, for some reason, to add ray traced reflections in this game. Of all the ray tracing effects to do in a desert, I don't know what that decision making was about. I would have done shadows or GI or
like they did with Dragon's Dogma.
Dragon
that had its own issues, but this is worse. It's a real bummer, man. I don't know what's up with this game, and I was really, because obviously Monster Hunter World was quite popular, and that ran on the older MT Framework engine, and also kind of pushed it out pretty hard. But I think everybody was like, "Oh man, I can't wait to see what they do with the RE engine with Monster Hunter," and it turns out not a whole lot. Like to me, it feels like the engines Capcom has made are architected in such a way that they're not super well suited to this type of game world, which that's not easy. I mean, obviously this engine was specifically originally built to support Resident Evil games, right? Like that's where it was first used, and it's mostly been used in tighter linear action style games and stuff like that. So every example we've seen where they really try to push out the world size has resulted in pretty poor performance. Although in some ways I'd say Dragon's Dogma 2 was less bothersome than this for me.
Yeah, it wasn't as stuttery. Didn't have nearly as many of the texture issues that we're talking about here. And also I thought, just like their art design meshed well with their technical goals, in spite of the towns looking so awkward. Like it at least looked good. I thought Dragon's Dogma 2 looked good.
The lighting especially was really quite nice. So
it was great lighting.
It was really good looking in that regard.
So I could see some of the aspects there where the GPU was going in that game, but in this game it's just totally bonkers. So definitely one of the poorest games I've reviewed in a long time from a technical performance perspective, alongside Oblivion Remastered this year.
The smoothest performance I could find was when you played the performance style mode on a PS5 Pro. You get really good performance, but really bad image quality. So,
it's a game that you have to be like 720p on a mid-range GPU to be getting really acceptable
That's
performance.
kind of what it looks like.
Yeah, it's not that great. But you know, there's some games that scale poorly, John.
Yeah.
But there's some games that scale really, really well.
That's
I mean,
right.
if I had to rank this list, I don't know, this might be number one if there were a ranking. I would say one of the best PC ports of the year is definitely 100% Doom: The Dark Ages.
Right.
Like,
which one are best graphics?
yeah, easily. Yeah. And it's just, there's so much that's so good here. Pushing the tech forward by using and forcing upon you ray tracing, just made the game world so much more reactive, so much more high fidelity in those areas where it can be. And you plug in like an RTX 2060 and you can get good performance in this game at 1080p output resolution.
Mm-hmm.
That cannot be said for a lot of games that run ray tracing, let alone ray tracing of this level of stability. Plug a RTX 2060 into a UE5 title, it is going to be a messy looking game. And that is not the case in Doom: The Dark Ages. Then you got the fact that it also scales up within its own options. And then they added the path tracing support. So kind of like Assassin's Creed Shadows, this game also allows the PC version to scale really, really high if you want to, far into the future. People are going to be able to play this game with path tracing on in a decade and just still be able to marvel at it, which cannot be said of every game out there from a technical perspective. It'll still be challenging PCs in the future. It's probably the only thing, like, it's got benchmarks as well too. You really can't
nice
forget
benchmarks.
that.
It's verified for, and it actually runs surprisingly well on the Steam Deck now. Granted, you're doing 30 FPS, right? Which is a step down. Think like Switch version of Doom 2016. But like when you look at the size of this game, the world size, the ray tracing, everything working, and the fact that it runs that well on the Steam Deck, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Also take note, like I said, in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, there isn't just some random janky stutters everywhere, here or there. It is just a smooth performer on every platform. PC, I would say, is just like incredible given the high frame rates you can achieve here. You can make your frame rates a little bit lower by turning on that path tracing, or you can turn that off and run the game at hundreds of FPS, not including frame generation. Yeah, like the only thing to ding is, like, I think at release it had options above high or ultra that just kind of don't do anything. In fact, I'm still not exactly sure what they do. That's probably the only thing to really ding the game about, but that doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because it did at least run well. And yeah, definitely one of the best, if not the best, PC port that we saw this year. Scaling, performance, smooth, really responsive mouse and keyboard controls. It's a PC game. It feels so good.
Also, the loading in this is so ridiculous to the point where it's genuinely like jaw dropping. Like when you load up a level, it's like you just blink and you miss it. It's over. Like this, I swear, this loads faster than 90s Quake engine games on the same PC by quite a bit. Like it doesn't, I don't even understand how that's possible at this point. Like those old games you could fit entirely into memory now, and yet Doom: The Dark Ages loads faster. Like I'm thinking about stuff like Sin, for instance. I loaded it up, and like various other Quake 2 engine games, Heretic 2, all those. I was testing them recently for reasons, and I was like, what the heck? Why are these, like, they don't load long, but they take longer to load than this. And all the older id games as well. I mean, Doom 3, all of those things, they all take much longer than the Dark Ages.
Well, I mean, if you just, this game is real-time lighting, has its advantages. You're not moving in tons of textures if you don't need to. Very efficient texture streaming in this game. Yeah, it's really got it all. I think it's a wonderful PC game. And I wish many other developers would put as much love in their PC versions as it did for this year, as well as Machine Games did. Because like Machine Games also had an amazing PC port the year before. So yeah, I guess that's really it though. Those are the best and worst PC ports of this year, 3 in each category, unranked, but I mean, Doom's probably at the top, honestly. John, thank you so much for talking to me about this.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Alex. The only one, I didn't think it was fair to bring it up here, but I had to say Mind's Eye, man. That was but I think Mind's Eye is so messed up in general that it almost doesn't make sense to include it here. But Mind's Eye was a nightmare at launch.
Yeah, I mean, we do say this is about games, and it's debatable whether
Mind's Eye was a thing, that's for sure. Oh boy,
yeah. But John, thank you so much, and
indeed.
everyone in the audience. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a wonderful New Year transition to 2026, and we'll catch you around next time.